dreams with love. Susie's spark shines from above. Amy's colors twist and play. Sally keeps the tracks in sway. Tony waits from Georgie's side.
Hi and welcome back to another spooky edition of Georgie's Gorgeous Gifts and the Friendship Express collaboration. So today we're going to be doing something again completely different. We're going to be using this mirror and some coasters to create some spooky effects within them. So I've printed off these stickers that me and my good old friend ChatGPT designed, and I've printed them off on my printer, and now I'm going to cut them out. So the bigger pieces are for the large mirror you can see by the side of me, and then the smaller pieces are for the coasters. So I'm just grabbing my scissors and cutting round all the edge of these stickers. Now the aim of this make is to look as though that these pieces are coming out of a mirror. So for the large one I am actually using a 30cm square mirror, and for the smaller coasters I'm using some deep round coasters from Let's Resin. So when it come to designing these, me and ChatGPT got together and I asked for some scary spooky faces looking as if they were coming out of a mirror, and this is what they've come up with. So I'm just cutting round all these pieces so that they're going to fit. So I have sped this bit up for you because you don't want to see me cutting out a load of faces and a load of hands. But if you haven't tried ChatGPT yet, honestly the things you can do with it is absolutely amazing. So I'm just making sure that these are going to fit in the places that I want them, and then I'm taking the backing off each of them. And this did take quite a while. My previous sticker paper was perfectly clear behind, but this had like a mist around it, and I was a bit concerned that that was going to affect the piece. But in fact it probably helped it. It made it look a bit more spooky. So I'm just attaching the head and then attaching a hand either side, just to make it look like he's pushing on the mirror. It did take me about 5 or 6 attempts to try and print these off at the right size. So I've now got a load to spare for next Halloween. And I'm doing exactly the same with the opposite hand. Now I haven't prepped this mirror in any way other than give it a good clean with some isopropyl alcohol and then popping these stickers on top. So now it's time to put the first base down on the coasters. Now for this I'm using the craft resin 1:1 ratio, and I've popped it through my debubbling machine, and I'm adding some metallic silver alcohol ink to both of these. So we've got 3 darker metallic and 1 lighter metallic, purely because I'd run out of the one, but I thought it would be interesting to see the difference in the effect afterwards. So I'm just pouring a thin layer, probably about 3 or 4 millimeters deep, into each one of the coasters. Now this is going to act like a mirrored effect base. Now I wanted to use the floating powder, but I've only got gold and copper, so unfortunately I'm going to have to get myself a silver one. But this silver was starting to look really mirror-like, so I prefer the light one to the dark one. So after giving it a good mix into my resin, I then pour this into the remaining coaster. After giving this a bit of a mix about, I then pop this into my curing machine till it's firm enough that I can stick the stickers on them. Now a few of you might have seen this before, but this is the giveaway pumpkin, which is in video hashtag 73. I will link the card above. That's if I remember. So all the way through October, whenever I've been using resin, from every make I've popped at least a tiny bit of resin into this pumpkin mould. So it's full of Halloween colours, purples, greens, oranges, blacks. So I can't wait to see that when it's demoulded. So now it's time to make sure that the resin doesn't come off the edge of this mirror. So I'm using pieces of white PVC that I've cut in half, and I'm attaching them by the corners with some UV resin. Now this was incredibly difficult, and at one point I had to get my daughter to come and help me because I felt like I needed 10 different sets of hands. Because the pieces of card were only 30 centimetres and the mirror was 30 centimetres, I had to really pull it tightly so that it would all stick around the edges and that it wouldn't run down the sides. Now this is the PVC plastic that I'm talking about, and I'm literally just popping some UV resin down each edge and then using my resiner's lamp to cure it solid. I have sped this bit up for you because this really did take, about 45-50 minutes to do. So I'm just adding some corner pieces onto each of the corners just to add it as a little bit of extra security. So I in fact tape them as well. So I really was going for gold with making sure that this was secure. So after I was happy with the box, I then thought there's a good chance that the resin is still going to run down the edge. And that was just going to make a terrible mess. So I decided to go in with a line of UV resin all the way around the edge and curing this as I go. I obviously don't want this all over the mirror. So this is a really, really thin line, half on the mirror, half on the plastic. Now resin cures to most things, but this is something that it doesn't cure onto. So after this piece is then fully cured, I will be able to take the plastic off, well that's the idea anyway, without ruining the piece. And at this point you can probably see why this video wasn't ready in time for the playlist yesterday. So while I'm waiting for the box to cure, I'm popping these little stickers onto the coasters. So I have a set of hands here and I'm popping a left and a right one onto the one coaster, and then I'm using 3 faces for the other 3 coasters, making sure that I've firmly pressed down on them. But the one thing I have noticed with these stickers is if you rub too hard, it often brings the paint or the ink off the stickers, so you really do need to be careful. And I was still worried about this ring around the stickers, but I was too invested to not go ahead and do it. So after making sure that all these stickers were firmly down and in place, this was now ready for the second layer of resin. Now the purpose of the second layer is to try and give it some sort of depth, but this is how it's looking so far. I love those faces, and it actually does look like a bit of a mirrored background. I maybe should have gone a little bit lighter maybe on the sticker colour, but other than that I'm really pleased with them. So I've mixed some more resin up, and the next layer is the clear layer. So I'm just filling up all 4 of these coasters to, again, another 3 or 4 millimeters. Then it was time to pour the first layer of resin onto this big mirror. Now I was procrastinating a bit because I was a bit concerned that 1, it would all run off the edge, 2, it wouldn't work and you'd be able to see the stickers underneath. But when I poured the resin on, something really cool happened. The sticker started to melt away into the background, leaving the picture alone. I did have to in fact go and mix more resin up because there wasn't quite enough, but this first coat probably took about 150 mils of resin. I'm just making sure that it's all out to the edges, and for that I'm just getting my mixing stick and just dragging it all along to make sure that there's an even coat. I didn't want to start lifting it and tilting it, etc. So I'm just grabbing my heat gun and running over the top. But you can see here, and I have put this on speed for you, hyperspeed for you, but look, the sticker's disappearing. I was so pleased with how it was starting to look. It actually looked like he was behind a glass mirror. There was only one problem. Where there was an overlap on the sticker, you can kind of still see where it was. But at this point it was way too late to do anything about it. So I'm just adding a little bit more resin. I didn't bother putting this one through my debubbling machine because the layer was so thin. I just used my heat gun to go all along the top and pop any bubbles. And I managed to get this resin to a depth of about 1 to 2 millimeters. I then went back over it with my heat gun just to make sure that all them little tiny bubbles were gone. Now I have got to give it to craft resin. The clarity in this resin is absolutely amazing, because otherwise you wouldn't have been able to pour it onto a mirror. So while I was waiting for this to cure, I decided to give the mirror a little fancy edge, like an old type haunted house mirror style. And for this I'm using, it's a sugar mould, and I've had this for some time, but not really used it because it's a bit old-fashioned, but perfect for this job. So I'm filling it with UV resin and then making sure that I've got in all the grooves and all the gaps, and then I pop this under my light after I've filled in each cavity. I was unsure how many I'd need, so I made about 15-20. I think I might have gone slightly overboard. So just to make sure I've got in all the grooves and the gaps, I'm using my silicone tool just to push all the resin into the edges. And then, like I say, pop this under my lamp to cure. Now I did notice with these pieces that when I took some out, they were really clear. And when I took others out, they had like a matte finish to them. And then I realised the difference. With some of them, I was allowing them to absolutely fully cure, so under there for a good 5 or 6 minutes. With the others, I was pulling them out just as they were curing. So the one side was still tacky. So I took them out the mould and popped them underneath the lamp. And that's what was creating the clear pieces. When it wasn't fully curing up against the mould, it was actually really quite clear and shiny, which is good to know for future projects. But for this one, we're going to be turning these silver. So in order to do that, I'm using some gilding glue. You can buy this pretty much from Amazon, Temu, relatively cheap. And this is glue that you pop on your items and leave it to dry. It doesn't dry fully. It leaves the items really tacky still, which is perfect for what we need for the next part. So after coating all these pieces with this gilding glue, I then left them for about 40 minutes to dry off. And then it was time for the third layer to go onto these coasters. Now again, I'm just using clear resin. And I'm filling them up probably another 1 to 2 millimeters. Now this is close to the top, but not quite. So I'm just making sure that I've got enough resin to cover the whole coaster. And at the same time also pouring the second layer onto this mirror. Now again, this is just plain clear epoxy resin. Now when pouring pieces this big, I tend to find if you pour from the middle and just allow it to reach to the edge, you get a lot less bubbles. But there wasn't quite enough resin, so I pushed it out, and my intention was just to leave it like a squiggly edge and then line it with some silver foil maybe later. But as we know, resin is self-leveling and it managed to level itself out to the edges anyway. Now in this layer, I need it to look like a smoky mirrored type of look. So I've got some black metallic alcohol ink and I'm just mixing it up in a tiny amount of resin, and it really is a tiny amount, about 5 ml, and I'm popping 2 drops of it and giving this a good mix. And then getting some on the end of my stick and just literally rubbing it through to create black smoke lines throughout these coasters and throughout the mirror. Now you do need to be careful when you're doing this, because when resin starts to cure, it pulls everything towards the middle. So every 5-10 minutes or so, I just continued to go back in with my stick and push it out towards the edge, so we didn't end up with a solid black centre. So let me just bring you down. So this is what it is looking like now. I am absolutely in love with this piece. I really am. I'm a bit disappointed with the crossover where the hands were, that you can see the sticker. But yeah, I am really pleased with them. Let me know in the comments what you think. So again, while this was curing, the other pieces now were ready to have the next stage. So for this, I'm just using some plain straight sheets of silver foil. And I've already done the majority of the pieces. So I've left this to cure, this glue, for about 40 minutes, 50 minutes. And then I am grabbing my silver foil sheet in, popping the piece on the front, and then with a dry soft brush, just going in and burnishing it into these pieces. And this is really simple. I do this with all the pieces. Just continue to dip them on the foil and then brush them with a soft brush. Now this doesn't work with the silver foil in the pots that's already broken up, because you don't get enough of a coverage. But for the flat sheets, this works absolutely brilliantly, and it's giving me that old weathered silver antique look that I'm after. So after completing all these pieces, it was then time to pop them around the mirror. Now I wanted to frame this mirror, like I say, so that it looked like an antique piece that should be in a haunted house. So I'm just popping the pieces all around the edge. I used the 4 big pieces for the corners, and then use the thinner pieces for the edges. But I think this sets this piece off really, really well. Now at this point the resin is near enough cured, so I'm just popping them on the top, and the resin will then cure solid around them so that I won't have to use any glue. To connect from the corner pieces to the straight pieces, I am using these little plume of feathers, and yeah, I absolutely love it. I'm wondering now whether I should have done it in gold rather than silver. Let me know your thoughts. But then I left the whole lot to fully cure. So now for the moment of truth to see whether this comes off as easy as it should do. And I am just peeling off the tape, and it's coming off the sides, no problem whatsoever. It's not left a lip, it's not left a horrible edge. It's absolutely perfect. So I have got some larger sheets of these, but they are like triple the size, so way too big for this project. But yeah, and you can reuse this stuff as well. So I'm peeling the UV resin off, peeling the tape off, and just bringing it back down to the 4 initial square pieces that I'd cut up. It really is this simple. Now when I ordered it, I didn't realise that this stuff was white, but you can get the clear version of this, which is absolutely fantastic. So you can then see in your piece, and it's perfect for mould housing as well. After taking the whole lot apart, it was then time to see whether the mirror had actually worked, or rather whether it looked any good. And you know what? I was really, really pleased with it, especially with this outer edge. I think it finished it off lovely. Yeah, I mean, you can see the depth on it. I think if I'd have had a bit more time, I probably would have gone a little bit thicker, you know. But yeah, I absolutely love it. Not only for Halloween, but just as a really creepy, spooky mirror, and you can still see through it, which is great. I did consider popping in some cracks on the glass, like he was trying to come out of the glass, but that would have needed another 2 coats at least. And I was umming and ahhing whether I'd wreck it or not, so let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. So now on to the coasters. Now I also really liked these, but that mirror's going to take some beating. So I'm just demoulding them, and I really, really like the mirror shine that they've got on the back. It's just a shame that it didn't have that much of a shine on the front. So while I was doing this, I did consider using the chrome mirrored marker maybe on the front of one of them. Obviously not now, but if I was to do these again, rather than using alcohol inks, so do clear resin and then a coat of the chrome mirrored pen, which would give it that mirrored look I was after. Though these ones are a bit jagged around the edges, purely because I didn't fill the mould all the way to the top. So you're always going to get that, but that was easy enough to snip off with some scissors or a nail file. But yeah, I was really, really pleased with how they come out, even the different colour silvers. So I am going to do a couple of little bits to a couple of these coasters before we finish, just to see if I can jazz them up a little bit. Now the first thing is to be going and using this mirrored chrome pen. This is the pen I was on about, and I'm just going all the way around the edges with this. Now we'll speed this bit up for you because this does take a little bit of time, and I did give this 2 coats. So after this was done, I also decided to go in with a small ring all the way around the edge. Now I am using the full width of the pen for this, but for the life of me I can't draw a proper circle. Not even when I'm using one as a guide. But the good thing about this pen is as long as it's only a couple of minutes after using it, you can actually wipe it off with a baby wipe and start all over again, which I did several times. And then, like I say, I'm just tidying the edges up, so I'm using a little pair of nails for this, and I'm just snipping off all the extra bits of resin that's around the edges that was just protruding above the coaster base. And I do this with all 4 coasters. Now for the last thing, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Now I don't know whether this is over the top or not, but we're going to try it anyway. Now for some reason this part didn't film, so I am going back in and just showing you what I've done. So I'm grabbing my heat gun, and I've got these little silver pieces that we made earlier, and I'm just heating them up, only for a couple of seconds, and then you can bend them. So I'm bending them into shape so they make like a roundish shape for this coaster, and I'm just popping them all around the edge, like we did with the mirror as a surround. Now you really do need to be careful when doing this because these heat guns do get really hot and you'll burn your fingers. And secondly, when you're bending it, be careful not to snap them because they are still really fragile. So I continued to do this until I was really happy with the shape, and then I'm going to stick them down with some epoxy glue. This is a really handy technique, particularly with Christmas coming up, because you can bend pieces that you've made and pop them onto your Christmas baubles, whether that be glass or PVC, and it gives a really effective 3D look. Because there are several ways to decorate it after. You can use this gold or foil leafing, you can use acrylic paints, you can use spray paints, glitter. There was supposed to be a video on Halloween baubles with this technique, but I just haven't got the time. Halloween season is nearly over, so there will be a new video every day this week, just because there were that many Halloween ideas that I had, and there are just a few more that I want to make just before the Halloween season is over. And then on the 31st of October, which is Halloween, I have a Halloween special where we'll be announcing the winner of the giveaway. Details of this are in video number 73. So if you'd like to enter, go and check that video out, linked above. The other thing is, if you haven't already subscribed, if you would kindly do so, I would really appreciate it. It doesn't cost you a penny, but it helps my channel out massively. But those who have continued to support me this last few months since I started, I can't thank you enough, honestly. I'm really enjoying what I do, and I hope you are too. So back to this make. I'm using a 2-part epoxy glue to stick these pieces onto the edge of this coaster, just to make it look like the mirror. Now, like I said before, this may be a little bit too much, but we thought we'd give it a go anyway. Though we are nearly over. After sticking these down and letting them cure, they are now finally completed. Now this one was a few days make for me, so it was a bit of a long one. And this video is in collaboration with the Friendship Express, and the playlist will be linked below in the description as well as at the end. So go and take that playlist a look because there's some absolutely fantastic artists. So all that's left is to leave you with some glamour shots. I've been Tony from Georgiesgorgeousgifts. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Stay safe, happy crafting, and bye for now.
Pouring dreams with love. Susie's spark shines from above. Amy's colors twist and play. Sally keeps the tracks in sway. Tony waits from Georgie's side. This train's a wild and joyful ride. All aboard the Friendship Express. We create with love, no time for stress. Pour it, spin it, watch it glow. Together with the art that flows. Epoxy rivers, marbled skies, swirling worlds in every size, every size. A resin sea, a glossy crest. All aboard, you're with the best.